Okay, hey everybody, Tekking here. This is going to be one of those serious intros where I actually have something important to announce, and then after that we will get to the actual video. So, this is something that has been really annoying on YouTube the last few weeks for me, and it's not just my channel. A lot of other channels have been hit by this, but I should bring this to your attention. I was hoping it would just kind of go away, but it's getting worse. There are a lot of these bot accounts. And what they will do is they will take a channel avatar and put it as their channel avatar, pretending to be another YouTuber. And then they will reply to a bunch of comments in the comment section, typically saying that you've won a prize or you're on a short list of winners, you know, click this link, do this, you know, do not fall for it. It is not me. I have an example of it right here. This is just one example. There are so many. I have to deal with this practically every single day. I have to go on my channel multiple times a day to make sure there's not more of these. No matter how many of them I block, no matter how many of them I report, they're just more that are generated, which means to me these are just bots that are coming off an assembly line. So an example of this is they just took my channel avatar, put it as their channel avatar. It's usually telegram.me is the website that's associated with this. Please do not fall for it. I will never, ever comment something like this. I will never post a contest or something in just the comment section alone, all right? I'm never going to, like, reply to somebody and say, you won a fantastic prize, click on this link. No, I'm never going to do anything like that. I've done contests before on the channel, but never in this fashion. Please do not fall for this. Do not give out your personal information to anybody on the internet. It is not me. I've gotten a lot of emails from people that are asking me, like, is this you, Tekking? I'm like, no, it isn't. If you see anything like this of any nature, like, in general, like, I will never comment anything like, you know, follow this link or do something like that. I would never do that in general. So if you see anything like this, please report it as spam, because that's what it is. I've already talked to my YouTube manager about it, and he mentioned that a lot of other channels are dealing with this right now. Crypto channels especially are getting hit very hard by this, but it's obviously bleeding out into other little communities on YouTube. You know, they're working on figuring out a solution to the problem, but nothing yet. So hopefully at some point they'll roll out some new method to prevent these kind of channels from existing. But yeah, just letting you know, to give you an example of a comment that is actually me so you can make the distinction. So this is obviously a spam account right here, okay? I don't even like to use emojis, so, you know, it's very obviously a spam account. If you do see a reply from me, it will look like this, all right? So here's just somebody that commented on a video I did a few days ago. My replies always have the check mark next to it in that little circle, but also they are highlighted because I am the actual owner of the channel, so I'm the one that's actually replying. So if you see something that looks like this, that is me. If you see literally anything else, it's not me, okay? So just letting you know about that. It's been very annoying. At first, it was only like a few of these comments, like not that many, and I would just ban them and block them and just be like, whatever. Then it became like 2 or 3 a day, and now it's a lot every day, and it's just the bane of my existence for the last few weeks. A lot of other YouTubers are dealing with it, and I hope there is a solution soon, but I just wanted to bring that up so nobody gets scammed by this. Please do not give out your personal information to anybody under any circumstances. All right, so that's that. Now, the other issue I'm dealing with right now is my hair, but unlike the bot issue, I can actually deal with that. All right, let me just put this nice bear headband on. There we go. Now it's perfect. All right, let's get into the video. The underworld, as in the black market, as in mercenaries, as in people that do duplicitous business transactions. So, we got to see the emperors of the underworld during Big Mom's tea party at Totland, alright? And so we didn't really focus on all of them. The ones that were focused on the most were, of course, Big News Morgans, because he's like the greatest character in all of One Piece now. Big news! Big news! And we also, of course, focused on Stussy. Stussy. Not really sure how to pronounce her name. I think in the Japanese it's Stussy, and in the English, because the English dub of this just came out, they pronounce her name Stussy. So whatever, you can make your jokes about it either way. So yeah, those are the two we focused on, and it turns out Stussy is actually not even a member of the Underworld Emperors. Well, she is, but that's just her cover identity. Her real identity is Secret Agent for the Cypher Pole Zero. Yes, so we focused on them, but there were 4 other members of the Underworld Emperors that were showcased during Totland. I'm sure we're going to find out a little bit more about them as the story goes on. So the Underworld, especially in the New World, is very relevant. Doflamingo was a broker for the Underworld, of course, so just one example is that he basically was the middleman in between Caesar Clown, who was generating the SAD, and then Doflamingo took the SAD on Dressrosa and had the Tontadas forcibly cultivate it into Smile Fruits, which he then sold to Kaido, which, by the way, I wonder how much scratch Doflamingo was making off those business transactions. I wonder how much a Smile Fruit goes for in the One Piece world, in like an Underworld sort of business transaction, you know what I mean? Not really sure. But the Underworld is very relevant, and just the idea is that Doflamingo was honestly, like, he was a big player. It wasn't like he was just a small fry or anything like that. He was a really strong dude. He had the alias Joker, right? So he was a big shot, but he even Doflamingo was not like one of the head honchos of the Underworld, okay? So we're going to go through all 6 members today and talk about what their individual specialties are. Like I said, we don't know a lot about them other than Morgans and Stussy, and even them are still like a lot of mysteries involved with that. But they are each involved in a different sort of like underworld organization, okay? And they each have their different specialties. So let's start off with the Fortune King, or the God of Fortune, Feld, all right? So Feld is this big dude with a giant gut. He wears the finest silk suits. He's got like a bunch of diamond earrings. He's always smoking a big fat cigar. He's got a cape over him. Keep in mind, we only get to see most of these emperors during the tea party, so they're probably dressing like their Sunday best to go to Big Mom's tea party and everything like that. But I get the impression Feld often dresses like this anyway. He's the head of the Feld conglomerate. What exactly is the Feld conglomerate? Well, we really don't know, but considering the fact he's called the God of Fortune and the Loan Shark King, and he runs a conglomerate and he dresses like a shady businessman, I'm going to assume he's the CEO of a shady business. In particular, I like to think that Feld is the head of all of the banking organizations in the One Piece world because he's the Loan Shark King, all right? So One Piece is a big world. It certainly has an economy. If it has an economy, there's got to be banking and loan options, obviously, right? So that means there's got to be banks, and every bank is probably controlled by a conglomerate, and that's probably the Feld conglomerate, with Feld himself sitting in the big seat at the very top. He's the CEO of this organization, okay? I just realized he's very similar to the shark from Isekai D&D, so I should have had Daniel Green in on this. I don't know. Anyway, I can see Feld, you know, sitting across a big giant desk, huge seat, you know, super cushiony, and, you know, somebody walks in and he's just like, I need a loan to help pay my mortgage on my house and feed my family. Please help me, Feld. And that's when Feld, he kind of plays it up like, you ever see Venture Brothers? I would imagine Feld's a lot like Monstroso in that regard, right? Like Feld, he turns the seat around, and at first he's very amenable. He acts very friendly towards you, and he's like, come sit down. Would you like a cigar? Perhaps a drink of the finest brandy in all of the New World. It's like, oh yes, thank you so much, Feld. All right, let's get down to brass tacks here. Interest rate is going to be 57%. Actually, you know what? Let's make it 67%. Actually, let's make it 69% interest just because I like the meme. Anyway, sign your life away here. And then so the poor bastard has no choice but to like, okay. And he signs his life away, and Feld gives him the loan, and he doesn't pay it back on time, or he misses a payment. Well, as the shark would say, you know, there goes the kneecaps, you know what I mean? He's certainly a very brutal individual. When all of the emperors arrive, they sing that song together, and if you actually listen to the lyrics, it actually kind of goes into a little bit of how each of them view one another, okay? So another member of the emperors is Drug Peclo, who is referred to as the Major Undertaker. He's like a mercenary, okay? And so when Feld arrived at the tea party, he sees Peclo there, and he's like, you know, what's this stupid, bloody mercenary doing at this fancy establishment? And Drug Peclo took offense to that, and Stussy as well. Stussy was basically like, you're such a hypocrite, Feld, you know? And Drug Peclo is like, you have just as much blood on your hands as I do, okay? Except the difference is Drug Peclo is a mercenary. He's like a hitman. He's upfront about it. The dude literally walks around with a giant scythe everywhere, okay? Like, he's pretty direct that he kills people, all right? But Feld is a little bit more like, oh, I have a fancy office on the top of like a 20-story skyscraper, and I'm the head of this giant conglomerate, you know? I'm a businessman. And everyone's like, yeah, no, you're not, all right? You're basically a mafioso. You're a mafia don, and that's like what you are, right? So yeah, I'm sure he's pretty brutal. If people can't pay up, he drags them into the back room and, you know, puts on some brass knuckles and just like, where is the money? You know, and then if it continues like that, then they'll probably just end up taking out the chainsaw and, you know, where it goes from there, you know what I mean? So yeah, Feld, pretty brutal businessman, and he has a lot of underworld dealings for that reason. So he is, when it comes to like banking and money and the economy and stuff like that, he is the head of that in the underworld. He also might be dead though, because he got his hands on the Tamete box, you know, and so he was about to open it. Stussy shot him with her Shigon, and I believe he fell down. Did he fall off of Whole Cake Chateau? Something happened with Feld, but it's One Piece, so he's probably not dead, but he might be severely injured, okay? But also he might be dead, who knows? But yeah, so that was the situation with Feld. Next up, we have the queen of the Pleasure District. We have Stussy, however you pronounce her name. At any rate, I know that her birthday is April 24th, because she's the One Piece character that shares my birthday. Ah, there we go. So, Stussy's actually rather interesting because she is the queen of the Pleasure District, which I'm assuming you know what that is. You know, she's the leader of the escorts. I would imagine somewhere on some island in the New World, right? There's like a red light district of a really popular city or something that people go to, kind of like Las Vegas in our world, or like Amsterdam or something like that. So there's this big city, it's this big nightlife, and then there's like this giant establishment, like a castle or something, right? And, you know, maybe some gentlemen and people will enter this establishment. And you have Stussy there kind of sitting on a couch, and she's wearing this like long, elegant, silken like dress, and she's smoking a cigarette out of one of those cigarette holder things or whatever. And she's just sitting there and just like, welcome to the Pleasure Palace or something like that, you know, and then that's what she does, all right? That's her job, but not really, because that's just her cover identity, because she is actually a member of Cypherpole Aegis Zero, tasked with protecting the Tenryubito. So it would make sense that, of course, the world government knows what's going on. They, of course, know there's an underworld, there's black market dealings happening all up and down the Grand Line and in the Four Blues. The government is aware of this, and who better to infiltrate than the Cypherpole? And who better of the Cypherpole to infiltrate than the best of the best of the best? It was mentioned by Oda before that the Cypherpole numbers are like CP 1 through 9 and then Cypherpole 0. The higher the number, the more important the task is, with 0 being the most important, okay? Not the least important. If that was the case, you know, Cypherpole 0's job would be to, like, restock the vending machine at Marie Joie or whatever. But anyway, oh god, I just thought of something. Holy shit. All right. Cypherpole Aegis Zero has to listen to the Celestial Dragons. That's their job. They're basically glorified bodyguards, but they're like the best bodyguards for the Celestial Dragons. But you know how the Celestial Dragons are. So you know for a fact that every once in a while, like, Charlos would be ordering Lucci around to be like, Lucci, go grab me a soda. And Lucci would have no choice but to agree to it, because that's his job. He has to. He'd be like, would you like some Diet Dr. Pepper or regular Dr. Pepper, St. Charlos? I want regular Dr. Pepper. In fact, I want Dr. Pepper with twice as much sugar in it. And it's like, very well, sir, right away. You know, Lucci would have to go get him the soda. That's his job, all right? But anyways, that's a little weird there. But anyway, okay. So they sent Stussy to go set herself up as the queen of the Pleasure District. She seems really popular. There were a lot of people when they were exiting the carriage and going into Whole Cake Chateau. There were a lot of people in Totland that were like, oh my god, it's Miss Stussy. She's here. treasure. This is so great. And then she's like winking at people and stuff. Okay. And so, yeah, but she knows her job. She has a plan, and she was actually the one that talked to Morgans at the end of Whole Cake Island and talked to him about how Luffy is really this brilliant Machiavellian schemer. You ever want to know why Luffy's bounty got shot up to 1.5 billion at the end of Totland? Why he got most of the credit with the assassination plot with Big Mom, even though Beiji was there, Caesar was there, there was a lot of other moving parts with this, except Luffy's the one that got all of the credit pretty much. It was because of Stussy. Stussy was like, nah, there's no way that Straw Hat Luffy is as stupid or as random as he's portraying himself. No, he's actually this brilliant Machiavellian schemer. He's got like 7D chess he's playing with everybody. He's a real threat. And then Morgans took that and then rolled with it, and that's the reason he has a 1.5 billion berry bounty after the end of Totland, okay? So you can thank Stussy for most of that. All right, so her situation is a little different, though, because she does run the Pleasure District. I mean, that is her day job, or her night job, I guess, and her day job is working at Marijois. I'm not really sure how the balance works out, because obviously the world government knows what she's doing, but the other members of the underworld don't know she's working for the world government. Obviously, she would be branded a traitor and be, like, attempted to be killed immediately, you know what I mean? So I don't know, she probably takes a lot of business trips. You know, she'd be like, I'm heading out for the week. And it's like, she'll just leave, and then she'll go up to Marijois and stuff like that. So, in order to set herself up, because it's implied that she's been at this status, she's been the queen of the Pleasure District for a long time. We actually don't know Stussy's age. It's actually listed as classified, so we don't know. It's implied that she is a lot older than she looks, though. She looks like she's about in her 20s or 30s. She might be easily, like, in her 50s, you know what I mean? So, anyway, yeah, she has been at this for many years now, so she's got the paradigm down on how to play both sides. And who knows, it might even be a twist at the end of the story where it's like she actually wasn't working for the world government. She actually triple-crossed them or quadruple-crossed the underworld or whatever. I'm not really sure what's up with her. She's a very enigmatic, so I'm not really sure what's up with Stussy. She's a rather interesting character, and I'd like to see more of her in the future. So next up, we have probably my favorite out of all of the Underworld Emperors. We have Drug Peclo. And let's just appreciate his name for a moment. Drug Peclo. All right? Like I said, this dude wears his profession on his sleeve. Okay, literally. He has like 499 written on his coat, although I think it's 495 in the manga. They changed it. I'm not sure why. Which I believe is actually the number of people he's killed. Okay, so like every time he kills somebody, he gets a new number stenciled on his shirt just to let everybody know. He walks around wearing like a creepy serial killer mask, and he carries a scythe wherever he goes. You know, this is Soul's scythe from Soul Eater, but you know, whatever, a regular scythe. He just walks around with that. During the tea party, he pretty much just took a regular shirt he always wears and just threw a tie over it, because he's just like, you know, he's like, I'm a mercenary. I go around and like, you know, slice people's heads off all day. It's a rather dirty profession. I get blood everywhere. I'll just throw a tie on and then go to the tea party. Big Mom won't mind. She probably wouldn't, honestly. So, as he is the major undertaker, I'm going to assume that Drug Peclo is the head of some mercenary organization. If not, he is the best mercenary in the entire world of One Piece. When you want somebody dead and you have enough money, I mean, he definitely probably charges a lot for his services, but if you want somebody of really high renown dead, if you want like a Marine Vice Admiral, or if you want a powerful pirate, maybe even a warlord, maybe even a Yonko or a Yonko commander, you hire this guy. Although I feel like with Yonko, I feel like Drug Peclo would know enough to be like, there's no way I can assassinate a emperor. I'm not gonna, I might take your money, but I'm not gonna do it. But if it's like reasonable, if it's like maybe a high enough status that he could do it, he would certainly do it. That's probably also why Big Mom allied so much with him, because like maybe Big Mom doesn't want to deal with his mercenary organization coming after her. Not to say that they would be able to succeed in killing her, but it's better to have them as allies rather than enemies. Keep your enemies close, sort of a situation, kind of, right? So, Drug Peclo being the head of a mercenary organization, I feel like he's going to have ties to the Cross Guild in some way. It was mentioned that various underworld organizations are backing the Cross Guild, and I feel like that's the perfect way to bring these emperors back into the spotlight of One Piece, okay? They were introduced at Totland, didn't really have a lot of relevance there other than Morgans and Stussy, but now the Cross Guild is happening, and Underworld underworld organizations are backing them. If Feld is still alive, maybe his conglomerate is backing the Cross Guild. Definitely Drug Peclo would, because I feel like there's a lot of money to be had there with like putting the heads of the Marines on the bounties now, and like Drug Peclo would definitely get behind that. That's just more business for him. That's just economical, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, now we're not just heading after the pirates, we're heading after the Marines. All right, well, yeah. Let's do this. He just takes out his sight, like, let's go, you know? All right. So yeah, that's Drug Peclo. Don't know much more about him other than the fact he really does not like Feld. Views him as a hypocrite, views him as just like, hey, you know, I'm out in the open with being this horrible mercenary or whatever. You're just, you know, hiding behind silk suits and like the finest jewelry, but I know what you're about. You might even be more brutal than I am at a certain point, you know what I mean? Being a mercenary, his thing might not be so much torture as... My scythe fell down. But it might not be so much torture as it is just assassinations. You know what I mean? So he's not into the whole, like, take him into the back room, put on the brass knuckles, and beat the crap out of them for 7 hours, you know, ripping out their teeth or something. He's more about just, like, you know, here's your target. And he's like, okay. And he shows up and he slices their head off. And he's like, okay, give me the money. And then that's it. You know what? That might just be what, you know, Peclo's all about. Next up, we have, of course, the best character ever in One Piece. We have Big News Morgans. Now, I've already done a video on Morgans, so I'm not going to stay on him for too long. Couple of things to note, though. Number one, he is a human that just has a devil fruit. He has the Tori no Mi model albatross, so he turns into a really large albatross. He usually stays in his hybrid form for the most part, or maybe that is his full animal form. I'm not really sure. And he is, of course, the president and CEO of the World Economic Times, or the World Economic Journal. Depends on the translation. He is the head of all of the news in the One Piece world. Now, keep in mind, this is an actual, like, organization. Just like how I'm sure, let's say, Feld does run banks in the One Piece world. Those banks are actual banks that, like, anybody, regular citizens, can just go into. Same thing with this. So, Morgans is an underworld emperor, but he also has an actual surface business that's, like, for the most part, squeaky clean. He runs the newspapers. All the major newspapers in the One Piece world go through him, okay? So, every time, and this is brilliant, because how many times throughout One Piece do we get the newspaper and we're looking at the newspaper and we're like, oh my god, this is crazy. And then finally, well into the story, Oda introduces the mastermind behind all this. Like, there is somebody that's actually, you know, at the headquarters for the World Economic Journal, and he's just like, you know, print this, double page spread, first page spread, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's Morgans' deal. So the thing is, he took a lot of kickbacks from the world government, though, of like, you know, bribes, essentially, of like, hey, we want you to print this story that makes us look good, or we want you to downplay this story that doesn't make us look good. But at the end of the day, Morgans is a journalist, damn it. He has integrity, and that integrity is to do whatever makes him the most amount of money, all right? So he does get excited by big news, though. That is his epithet. So if he hears a story that, like, Luffy defeated Kaido, Luffy went into Gear 5th, oh, that's going to be a full-page spread right there. And then world government's just like, no, we don't want you to print this. Even if they bribe him a lot of money, Morgans is going to be like, no, keep your money. I'm printing this story. This is going to get so many eyeballs glued to my paper, it's not even funny. It's going to be great. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Morgans is that kind of guy. Also, he also wears a fancy suit, which is cool. And he commands all of the news coup of the world to head out and do his bidding. I'm not really sure if he, like, psychically controls them or something, but he's, you know, reined them in to the point where he can basically connect them to his headquarters and it can travel around because the government is obviously looking for him a lot because he keeps printing these damn newspapers. It's actually kind of scary because he runs a monopoly on this shit. He is essentially a free agent that can move his headquarters wherever he wants in the entire world, print whatever he wants, and then send it out to the entire world like that, okay? The world government cannot really control the information that he leaks to the world, so that's actually rather terrifying for them, okay? He can just print whatever he wants. And actually, in a weird way, Morgans may very well be one of the central figures in taking down the Tenryubito system. Because if Morgans ever decides to side with the Revolutionary Army, holy shit, that's how you get the citizens on your side, with the news media, you know what I mean? So if the revolutionaries go to Morgans and say, we're gonna lead a revolution, we're gonna save the world or whatever, Morgans is like, that's some big news right there. Prints it out, sends it out, like, the Revolutionary Army defeats the Tenryubito, years of oppression finally ended. You know, that'll riot some people up. That'll be like, hell yeah! Now let's read the new edition of Marmaduke, you know? Although, he does mention during the song at Totland that he has allies in the Germa. Like the Germa are, you know, really closely tied to the World Economic Journal, which makes sense because Sora, Knight of the Sea, is the comic book that runs there. Another Emperor Giberson does mention, though, that, like, this is old news. Everybody knows that Germa is allied with Morgans. It's not that big it's not crazy news. Like, everybody already knows that in the Underworld community, right? And it's obvious. You can kind of tell. But yeah, I made a whole video about Morgans and the news coup and all that stuff, so go check that out there. All right, next up, we have the Concealer, or the Hider, Giberson. Giberson is a drunk, pretty much. Yeah, he just is always sloshed, like, 24/7. Anyway, his name is the Concealer, so I'm going to assume he is a smuggler of what? Probably everything. He's also referred to as the warehouse tyrant, or the warehouse kingpin, okay? So, whereas Feld is all about the money, and Morgans is all about the news, and Stussy is all about the pleasure, and Drug Peclo is all about mercenaries and hitmen, Giberson's thing is storage, not shipping, because that's the next guy, but he's about storage, smuggling, probably various drugs, probably various things like that, that liquor ore that they talked about after Dressrosa, when Koala gave her report that Doflamingo was also shipping that, like, you know, special alcoholic ore. It was like, it was an ore, but it was named after alcohol, which was strange. It was like very rare ore, though, in the One Piece world. So there was some of that. That probably involved Giberson. Slavery is a thing in the One Piece world. So, like, things like trafficking people is also a thing that Giberson probably deals with. He's sort of like Han Solo, except really, really drunk Han Solo kind of a situation there, right? And so, yeah, he probably has his warehouses set up all around the world. In fact, I wouldn't even be surprised if Giberson helped Doflamingo set up that underground port at Dressrosa, because that was a big port down there. It had warehouses. You got to move that kind of shit around. I'm assuming Giberson probably helped out Doflamingo there with his underworld kind of setup at Dressrosa. We don't know much else about him other than the fact he is a drunk, so that's a thing. He probably also transports a lot of that really good shit. You know, like, if you want to go and have a good drink, you go to Giberson's place, okay? He has that really rare wine, vintage, like 300-year-old, like, that's the kind of good shit, you know what I mean? All right. Not much else about Giberson, but if, you know, it probably will come up later about his dealings with stuff in the warehouses transporting things. You know, it might even come up relevant to the Revolutionary Army if they can ally with some of the underworld people, you know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, then finally we have Deep Sea Current Umit, who is a hugely successful shipping magnate in the One Piece world, okay? So his thing is transportation. Now, in the One Piece world, there isn't really a lot of mention about how things are transported a lot. Like, we know a lot about pirates and revolutionaries and marines and everything like that, but we don't really know a lot about, like, merchants. Like, obviously, there has to be a mechanism to sail merchant vessels through the Grand Line. It's very dangerous, especially in the New World, but people have to get their goods from somewhere, and that is from Umit's shipping industry, all right? So he's kind of like the Amazon of the One Piece world, I guess? I don't know. There is another service that's like Albatross Delivery, which are like really large birds that deliver packages. So that's like UPS or like FedEx in the One Piece world, but the actual conglomerate, like the huge business, is Umit. Umit is essentially Jeff Bezos. Let's just go with that, all right? And so he also might be a Long Arm tribe member. I don't know. I was looking at his picture, and we once again don't know a lot about him, but the way he has his hands in his pockets, his arms seem rather long, so I'm thinking maybe he's a Long Arm tribe member, okay? And so, yeah, we really don't know much more about him. He doesn't really talk much about his own industry, but yeah, shipping is his deal. Obviously, there would be a bunch of merchant vessels in the New World, and they can't be regular merchants. You know, the merchants for the Grand Line, they gotta be tough as a coffin nail, you know what I mean? Pirates would constantly be trying to attack them and steal all their goods. They would have to deal with Yonko territories, so it would make sense that the shipping magnate that's the head of all this would be in the Underworld. You pretty much have to have Underworld connections if you want to make sure that all of these ships get where they need to be, okay? So it's like, yeah, I could see Umit working very closely with Giberson, because Giberson has the warehouses where Umit's ship pick up the goods, and then Giberson's also the one that is the smuggler that conceals the things, ships that are just unassuming, you know, shipping vessels, and they go out and they deliver the goods to the island, but then also carry stuff down. Like for example, at Dressrosa, like one of Umit's ships arrive at Dressrosa, and the citizens are there, and they're like, "Oh, cool, new clothing and food for the week or whatever. That's awesome, goods from all over the Grand Line." And then meanwhile, they get some toys to deliver the other packages to the port underneath the city. Okay, so there you go, right there. So those are the 6 major leaders, the kingpins of the underworld, so to speak. They're all very interesting. Some of them are very duplicitous, as with the case of Stussy, and maybe even Morgan's a little bit. Morgan's isn't really duplicitous. Morgan's just is only allied with himself. He doesn't really have any other allies and anyone else. He will just believe in what he thinks is the big news story, and he'll print it whatever he thinks. Okay, even if it goes against a Yonko or even the Marines or even the world government, he doesn't even care. That's Morgan's. He works for himself. Stussy works for the world government. Feld might be dead, and we don't know much about Giberson, Umit, or Drug Peclo. All right, but we'll find out probably more about them as we continue. I'm thinking a lot of them are going to arrive because we're talking about the Cross Guild right now. Well, anyway, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Just wanted to go over them really quick. I could do another video just in a broad spectrum about the Underworld, because there's a lot of other moving parts with that, like different brokers and different people. Remember Disco, who ran the auction house? So there's a lot of different things to discuss with that, but I decided just to do a separate video on the Emperors before we move on to the Underworld in general. All right? Well, anyway, thanks for watching the video. Keep in mind, remember, if you see any of those spam accounts, do not fall for it, and hopefully that will be resolved at some point. Some new thing will be brought up. My manager did say that, like, YouTube is aware of the problem and they are trying to figure out a way to fix it, so hopefully that'll happen soon. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking, signing out.